Hello world, Shelly here, and today I'm here to show you how I got this eye look using the new limited edition Anastasia Beverly Hills Prism eyeshadow palette. This is a gorgeous, gorgeous eyeshadow palette, and I'm a fan, so I'm going to show you how I got this look. Now, I also want to go into a little bit of how do I sit down with a new eyeshadow palette and decide how I'm going to try this out, how I'm going to get a few looks out of it. Because it's really the same approach for every palette I sit down with, especially when you sit down with a palette that is not necessarily organized in a way that screams eye looks at you. If it's kind of randomized, like I'm thinking this, I'm thinking the Kat Von D Satan Sinner palette. When you're looking at a palette that's kind of random like that, there are some strategies you can use to kind of dig into it and get yourself a cohesive eye look from day one. You can always, and the first thing I always do is try to match up the colors as they're arranged in the palette and see if there is any arrangement that works. Like, did they put them in this order for a specific reason, or was it an artistic decision, like the way the Saint and Sinner palette from Kat Von D is laid out? It was inspired by cathedral stained glass windows, so it's not supposed to mimic eye looks in the palette, really, although it still kind of does. But if you don't feel like that is going to get you where you want to go, my next step is to take a look at the palette and find any of the sort of transition shade options. Now, since I have hooded lids, I pretty much stick to matte shadows as my transition colors. And in this palette, you have a few to choose from. You've got the Eden and Unity colors right up here. You've got this Saturn, sort of more of an orange color down here. The Sphere is a little bright for a crease color, but it is a matte, and if you were getting into something, you know, an out there kind of look, you might consider that. And we've got the shade Lure down in this bottom corner. So what I basically do is then I look at those colors and say, all right, how can I break them up? Warm tones, cool tones. And basically Lure is going to be your basis for a cool tone look. And then the Saturn and Eden are going to be more of your basis for warm toned looks. That's not to say you don't mix warm and cool. You're going to see in this look that we do. But starting out, if you're going to have a primarily cool look, usually you'll lay your most blurred transition down as a cool color. And same with warm. So start there. Pick your transitions and then build. So like when I sat down with this palette, I knew I wanted to do a cool toned look. I decided Lure was going to be my transition shade to start out with. And then I started bouncing around like, what am I going to do? Am I going smoky eye? Am I going bright lid? That's going to eliminate some colors right then and there. And then for your outer third, you're almost always going to stick to darker shades when you're doing that sort of, if you want dimension, especially if you've got hooded or droopy lids and you want to kind of disguise that. So then I'm looking in the palette to see where are those shades. And those shades are my matte parallel brown here. I've got this Osiris, I don't even know if I'm saying it right, but that sort of purplish blue color right there. We've got Obsidian, the black color in the corner, and then that's pretty much the range for the dark outer corner colors. When I'm deciding I want to go cool toned, I'm starting with that Lure color, and then I'm thinking, what'll go with that? And that brings me to, out of my dark shades to choose from, I can do Parallel, I can do Osiris, I can do Obsidian. Your black is almost always going to be that last sort of accent that you put on. You're not usually, unless you're doing a total smoky eye, going to go totally dark, so keep that as your sort of, you know, salt and pepper at the end. Then pick your lid color. And if I'm going cool toned, I've got choices between this lavender shade Dimension. I could go Throne if I want that green. I could go, you know, if I go with Sphinx or Eternal, they're slightly warmer. Sphinx is cooler than Eternal is. So that's kind of where you're at with colors, and just pick them one at a time, stay in the look that you're going for, and as you put the look together, make decisions on the fly for, ooh, it looks a little too cool, or it looks a little too muddy, or it needs a little bit more brightness, or it needs a little more pop, or it needs a little more darkness, and you just feel it out from there. But that's how I kind of like choose my initial look. And the first 4 or 5 times I use an eyeshadow palette, I'm going to stick to the same transition shades and see what combinations I can get. For example, starting with Lure as my transition. When I'm done with those, I'm going to sit down and say, all right, well, what other transitions do I have? Let's start with Eden. What can I do when I start with Eden as my transition? And then play with those for a while. Don't just go in willy-nilly if you don't have a feel for it. Kind of use a strategy. If you don't have a feel for it, have a plan. And when you have a plan, you'll eventually start to get a feel for it, if that makes any sense. So that's how I approach these palettes, especially when they're a little bit hodgepodge looking at a first glance. And this one I'm thoroughly enjoying. There's no significant fallout issues. It really is reminiscent of the Modern Renaissance palette in formula, and that's a good thing. So if you want to see how I got this look, just stick around, keep on watching. First up, I'm going to prime my lids with the MAC Paint Pot in Painterly. And if you've ever wondered why some people use soft ochre, some use Painterly. Painterly is the cool toned, while soft ochre is the warm toned. So whatever your undertone is, that's probably the one you would like. Next, this palette doesn't really have a skin tone shade for me to set my primer, so I'm just going to use this little Wet n Wild single in Creme Brulee and a flat shadow brush just to set everything down. I find that this just helps that shadows will then sort of blend smoothly over it. You don't get any tacky spots. Now I'm going to go in with a super fluffy crease brush. This is a Wangos 03, and I'm using the shade Lure. And first I just want to get a nice transition, and since I have hooded lids, I want to sort of blow that color up onto the hood of my lid, because when my eyes are open, it all kind of hides with that lid, the hood there. So I just want to get a very blurred set of color that transitions up toward my brow bone into nothingness. Then I'm going to take that same color Lure and a slightly smaller, slightly more firm tapered crease brush. This is a Moda Pro that came in Birch BoxyCharm recently, and go right into the crease and just kind of deepen up that same color, but now right in the crease. Now I want to put down a little bit of a dark base. This is the NYX Jumbo Eye Pencil in Black Bean, and I just want a little bit of this to give a little more depth to the color. I want a darker look, so just put enough on here that you can smudge it around, and take your finger and don't take it above the crease, just blend it upward into nothingness, so the darkest is down by your lash line and it sort of just fades upward toward the crease. This just makes your eye a little bit more tacky to hold on to some of those shimmer shades, and it gives a little more depth to any matte shades you put down. The same works in reverse if you use a white eye pencil. Now I'm going to take my Makeup Geek Outer V brush and the shade Parallel, and I'm just going to pack this into the outer third of my eye. Once most of the product is off the brush, then you can kind of take it toward the crease. Now with my finger, I'm going to take some of Dimension and pack it on the inner 2/3 of my lid. I'm going to go over that Parallel brown with Osiris and just bring some of that blue purple into that outer third and soften that transition between the Dimension shade and the outer third. And again, once you get some color on there, then you can go in and just bring a little bit into the crease, just on that outer third. Now I'm going to break the rules a little bit. I'm going to take a very small tapered blending brush. This is the Wangos 19 and the shade Sphinx, which does have a little shimmer in it. And I'm going to put it on just the lowest part of my crease, just before the transition happens. This color just looks so nice against Dimension. The rules, of course, say that you shouldn't put shimmers in your crease if you are attempting to hide a hooded lid or things like that. But you know, I don't really follow the rules, and when you're doing it in a subtle sort of a way, especially with darker shades, you can get away with it. It's fine. Break the rules. It's all good. I really like what this color does against Dimension. Now I'm kind of concentrating it on the inner 2/3 where Dimension is, because it's not going to show up very much where I've got that darker color anyway, so that's just where I'll blend it in. Gosh, isn't this just a pretty juxtaposition of colors? Love it. And with that same brush, I'm just going to do a little color switch and dip in and bring a little bit of warmth to counteract all the cool stuff we got going on here. So I'm going to dip like one boop into Eden. Boop, just that's it. And take it primarily on this outer 2/3, but right on that sort of, it's like the transition area. I have a hood, so it's like right on my hood. If you don't have hooded lids, it's kind of just right above where you did everything else. Let me put the rest of my face on, and I'll be right back to finish the lower lash line. Okay, lower lash line. I debated back and forth between whether to use Throne, the green shade, or Osiris, the dark purple shade on my lower lash line. And since I'm wearing a green shirt, I went with green as a sort of juxtaposition to the purple. You could totally do Osiris if you want to stay more monochromatic with the whole overall look, but I'm gonna go with Throne. But to start off, I'm going to put a little blending color down. I'm going to stick with Eden and put that down as the sort of nice blurring, softening shade. I'm going to take this all the way to the inner corner and just blur it out. Next, I'm going to take a flat sort of detail brush. And this is a Wayne Goss 07, but any sort of flat liner brush will do well. You want something more firm than the brush you just used. And I'm going to go in with Throne. I think this Goss brush is actually a lip brush, but I like it for my eyeliner. So I'm going to use that green shade Throne and keep this close to the lash line, but pretty bold. I'm going to take another pencil brush. This is the Morphe M168, just something even more firm and more small than the one I just used, and go back into Eden and just soften right underneath the green. I don't exactly want to blend the green out and down. I just want to soften its lower edge. I'm going to go back in with that flat shadow brush, the Goss 07, and just boop super lightly, like the lightest boop ever, into the black shade Obsidian. Seriously, lightest boop ever. I'm just going to do a faux sort of liner on just the outer third, just where we had the darker shade, where we originally put parallel, if you remember back then. And then I'm just going to kind of connect it to the outer corner and the lower lash line. If you start to lose your blend, just go back in with a flat shadow brush, get that Osiris, and just blend. This palette doesn't really have a shade that's light enough to be a brow bone highlight on me. This Unity shade will probably work for people with slightly darker skin tones than me, but on me, that's actually darker than my skin tone. So I'm just gonna grab this little Wet n Wild single that I've got. I don't even know what shade it is because I ripped the label off. It's just kind of a white shadow, and I'm gonna use that as my brow bone highlight. For inner corner highlight, I'm going back in with that Morphe brush again. I tried to do this with my pinky, which is how I usually do inner corner highlight, but I found that this color Lucid didn't really want to set down very opaquely on my pinky, so I'm using a brush. And a tight line with the Urban Decay 24/7 Waterline Pencil in Legend. My lower lash line, this is the only green eyeliner I've got. It is a Maybelline Lasting Drama in the shade Glossy Emerald, so I'm going to use this on my lower lash line. That is the smoothest drugstore pencil I have ever used. Why do I not have more of these? For mascara, I'm going to go with the Urban Decay Perversion. And here is the finished look. There you have it, my eye look out of the Anastasia Beverly Hills Prism palette. I highly recommend this palette. I am having a lot of fun with it. It is really easy to work with in terms of blendability and pigmentation. Good times. Hiccup. Thumbs up on this one. If you'd like to see more eye looks out of this palette or any other palette, let me know what you've got in the comments below and give me a thumbs up. That will tell me that I should keep on making these eye looks. Thanks a lot for taking some time out of your day to geek out over makeup with me. I appreciate it. I hope you guys all have an awesome day or night wherever you are in the world. Take care of each other. Bye-bye.